So the next listener wants to know, is there anything, this is an interesting question. In your opinion, is there anything that should never be joked about? And if so, how do you determine that? So this is from G. Willikers. I'll repeat the question again. Is there anything that should never be joked about? If so, how do you determine?
I always say that there's nothing that should be off limits, but I think there are some things that you need a lot of skill and experience to address.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of whether it's you're talking about somebody else's situation or your own. Like I always tell, the one that always comes up is rape jokes. Obviously, sexual assault jokes, rape jokes. I've heard 3 comics that do it well. That's it, and that's only 4 jokes out of the 3 comics.
It's funny you say that because in my material, so my opinion on this, to answer the listener, is that I don't think any jokes are off limits in period for the world, but I think you have to be a certain person to be able to make that joke. So for example, I wouldn't feel comfortable making black jokes. Like I just like race it, you know what I mean? But I think if you were black and you wanted to make fun of your own culture, that would be acceptable. When it comes to the rape jokes, I have experienced, sexual assault in my life. So I actually do have material where I tried to like we were talking about before, talk about that stuff on stage as an outlet. In my opinion, I think that's okay. And my reaction from the audience has been mostly good reactions from that thing. Cause I think the listeners can tell the authenticity if like somebody's making fun of themselves versus making fun of other people. So that's kind of my take on that. I don't think racist jokes or jokes about traumatic experiences like rape are off limits if the person is joking about themselves. That's how I look at it.
Well, in the way I was referring, I'm sorry, I should have specified. I'm talking about somebody talking about it and it's not them as the subject of it. So that's usually where I'm referring to. That's what I was saying. I've only heard 4. I've been listening to comedy my whole life, know, and I've only heard 4 good ones that I'd be like, yeah, that's a good.
That's another thing too. I guess I would have to hear the joke as well in order to like really understand the full context of it. But like overall, my opinion would be like, it would be hard to pull off unless that was something that you had experienced, yourself.
Oh, that's what I was saying. For the most part, I usually tell people if it's not something you've personally experienced and you're just talking about it, like that's a high level, that's a high bar to try and jump across to do something that serious. If I can ask you one question, you talk about it on stage. Now with like my PTSD stuff, when I first started talking about it out in shows, I would have people come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, I know some people you could talk to." Have you ever had that either when you first started?
No, I actually haven't. To be honest, I have not. I've talked about like I used to have an eating disorder. I make jokes about that on stage. No one's ever. Maybe I seem like I have it together now. I don't always have it together now, but like maybe when I say it, they're getting it from a place of like, this is in the past. Like, I don't think when I say those jokes, they're not taking it as in like, I'm currently experiencing those things. So I've never had anybody come up to me and ask if like I needed help with anything, but that's interesting that you get that reaction. So when you say your jokes, do you kind of present them in a way that it's like, no, I'm still presently experiencing these symptoms, or do you kind of say it?
Well, that's the one thing with PTSD, it never goes away. So you just learn how to kind of mitigate the symptoms.